following video demonstrates how to associate a bedside monitor to a patient's chart. You can associate bedside monitors as well as ventilators. In this demonstration, we will be associating a bedside monitor. From the patient's open chart, select iView/INO from the menu on the left. Note the patient's location as seen on the banner at the top of the chart. For this example, the patient is located at St. Joseph's Hospital on Unit 4IC in room 402, bed 1. Next, click on the Associate Monitor icon. Now, find the unit, room, and bed that the patient is occupying and click on it. Next, click on View Acquired Data at the bottom of the screen. If your patient has been on a monitor for a period of time before you associate the monitor to their chart, you should change the date and time to indicate how far back you wish to pull data into their chart. For this example, we want the last 30 minutes of data to be included in the patient's chart, so we will change the time frame to include the last 30 minutes. Click OK at the bottom of the screen. If we scroll to the right, we can see the time that the data will begin to be included in the patient's chart. Now click Associate at the bottom of the screen. A pop-up box will appear asking if you want to associate the monitor with the patient's chart. Select Yes. The monitor is now associated with the patient's chart. Click Close at the bottom of the screen. Data does not automatically feed into the chart. You must manually pull the data in. Go to the Vital Measurements section in iView. If you are taking the patient's blood pressure every 15 minutes, you will need to change your time column frequency to Q15 minutes. To do this, right-click on the date and select Q15 minutes. If you were taking the patient's blood pressure every 10 minutes, you would change the time column frequency to Q10 minutes. To pull the data into the chart, you double-click on the header of the time column. You may need to scroll down to see the data. The data will appear in the patient's chart in purple text. You see the heart rate monitored, the respiratory rate, the blood pressure, the mean arterial pressure, as well as O2 saturation. These values are unverified and require you to review them and then sign off that they are correct. They will turn to black text after you sign the documentation. The reason that they come through unverified is because the patient may have been moving the finger that the oxygen saturation monitor is on when the measurement was taken. The value that was pulled into the patient's chart was 82%, and as the patient's nurse, you know that the patient's oxygen saturation has been in the upper 90s. In this case, you would go into the patient's room, ask the patient to keep their finger still for a moment, and see what the proper oxygen saturation measurement is. You would then clear the 82% from the patient's chart and input the correct measurement. Then you would sign the patient's chart and the text would turn to black. It is also very important to disassociate the monitor from the patient's chart when they are no longer on your unit. To disassociate the monitor from the patient's chart, go to iView/INO and click on the Associate Monitor icon. Find your patient, click on their name, and then click on Disassociate at the bottom of the screen. The monitor is no longer associated with the patient's chart. Click Close. This concludes the demonstration.